Let me just start off by saying birds are really stupid. I know they have tiny little brains and they're like technically supposed to be related to like dinosaurs somehow, but still, how do you fly into just any random window? Especially my window, it's always riddled with tiny little handprints all over. I mean, how do you not see that? Anyways, dinosaurs are somehow extinct, but birds, they still thrive. I don't know. Go figure. But all jokes aside, today's video is actually incredibly serious. So stop joking around, okay? Let's stop playing. Let's stop wasting saliva. Let's get straight into today's video. I really quickly wanted to voice my personal opinion on this whole Deadpool franchise and how honestly I don't like the direction that it went with in the final entry into the franchise, and honestly I was just very disappointed. I expected a lot more. I'll give you guys my quick take, kind of like a mini review for the film. I will say the first like 30 minutes of this film were genuinely funny, aside from the dance sequence, which I thought was over the top, cheesy, and completely missed its mark. I thought the first few minutes were just genuinely well written. It was snappy. It was really well timed. Everybody was on cue with all of the jokes and their lines. And the overall plot line was really coming together. All of the characters seemed to have important roles. And then everything kind of fell apart. Like the next hour or so hits and it's just so boring and monotonous. I've said this before and I'll say it again. Ryan Reynolds just has way too much creative control over the Deadpool franchise. His idea of comedy is just essentially spewing out these really long-winded monologues, and sometimes you miss what the punchline is supposed to be, or you get to the punchline but you forgot what the joke was about. He just has these like really long-winded repetitive jokes, and sometimes, or I should say more often than not, they come off as a little bit cheesy, almost cringe-worthy. And it's an absolute crime how bad the action sequences were. The first time that Wolverine and Deadpool actually go at each other, you would think that you would have like a giant hard-on because of how amazing the sequence was going to be, but unfortunately same thing. They're very repetitive. By like the second or third time that they have a battle scene, it's just boring. They can't hurt each other. They can regenerate essentially on cue, and there's really no purpose to it. I guess they're working through their relationship, but it's essentially everything that you've seen before. Like, remember when Deadpool was being an absolute a-hole to Colossus, and then to Cable, and then to Wolverine? Well, it's essentially just replace the other character with somebody from the Marvel universe that can't stand Deadpool. That's essentially what you get over and over again. Deadpool is just a very fatiguing character to watch on screen. You would think that by now he would have like evolved and maybe become somewhat of a third dimensional character, but it's essentially what you see from Deadpool. The first film, you're getting the exact same thing with like a slightly different setting and kind of being introduced into the MCU, but not really. Overall, the film for me personally fell extremely flat. Not to say that it's like the worst film of all time. It's not even the worst Marvel film like in general, but it's just a very disappointing film. It wasn't everything that we thought it was going to be. There were some really cool cameos in there. The action sequences were okay. The comedy started off really strong and then eventually became the Ryan Reynolds show, essentially. If I had to give this movie like an actual legitimate rating, I would say it's like a mid-7, like a 7.4, 7.5. Just very disappointing. The biggest point of emphasis, at least for me, like the film was not great. I get it. And people are going to bash on it. But honestly, I hated the fact that this really didn't tie into the MCU too much. It didn't really like launch the next era of the cinematic universe. It's like this very self-contained film, and I get a lot of people are going to have the argument of, well, why can't we just enjoy a movie that's a one-off, that has nothing to do with the MCU, that has nothing to do with the multiverse? My problem with that is, at least in my personal opinion, this is the standard that the MCU or Disney as a whole has set up. Like, this is what we expect. We expect there to be this big giant Thanos threat level. We expect there to be a villain in the background kind of building up the anticipation. We expect there to be an intertwined universe, and that's not what we get with this film. And I'm sorry, it may be an okay standalone film, but we've come to expect way more from the cinematic universe, especially from Kevin Feige. This did not feel like a Disney Marvel film. It felt more like a Fox Universe film with the Disney logo attached to it. They could have easily segued this film into like maybe introducing Robert Downey Jr. as Doctor Doom in like an after credit scene. Maybe something with Red Hulk to kind of build up the anticipation for the newest Captain America film. Something to do maybe with the Thunderbolts or the Young Avengers. Just something to kind of connect the universe a little bit more instead of just having random cameos. But as I said earlier in the video, I just feel like Ryan Reynolds has way too much creative control of the Deadpool franchise. I get it. He kind of like planted the seed and watered it and tried to grow it into like an actual franchise. I actually remember seeing those test screenshots way back in the day for the first Deadpool film, and I'm talking like maybe 17 years ago. I want to say something crazy like that, where it was just like test footage of Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool. And if I'm not mistaken, those particular scenes did end up making it onto the first Deadpool film, and it was really cool. It was kind of like an iconic little moment for people that had been following the project for so long. And I get it, Deadpool wouldn't have happened without Ryan Reynolds, but I personally feel like it's time for him to pass the reins on to somebody else. I couldn't imagine anybody else being under the mask, but I'm just saying like the creative aspect of it, I would love to see somebody else writing, somebody else directing. I know it's not officially Ryan Reynolds doing any of those things, but that's how it feels like. It feels like definitely a Ryan Reynolds project. But this is the MCU. This is Disney picking up this franchise, and I feel like it's only a matter of time before they finally are able to put their own seasoning on it, put their own spin on this particular franchise. And honestly, I can't wait. All in all, as I said, it's not the worst film of all time. It's not even the worst MCU movie, I would say, but it's definitely disappointing. I think there were just so many different opportunities to do something special here, and unfortunately, I think they wasted away all of that potential by just making an okay, mediocre Deadpool film. But as always, that is just my personal opinion. That's my personal take. Hopefully the MCU kind of rights itself, and I've been kind of preaching this for quite some time. I genuinely feel like the newest Captain America film has the potential to do something like that. I'm definitely holding my breath and expecting this film to kind of be like the beginning of bringing the MCU to its former glory. But again, just my personal opinion. This is my personal take. I could potentially be wrong. Let me know your thoughts down below. As always, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Make sure to enjoy the hobby, read comic books, play video games, all that good stuff. Stay tuned. I do plan on uploading a little bit more consistently to this channel, so hopefully you guys stick around just to hear me ramble on about movies and games and things of that nature. Thank you guys for tuning in. I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you.